So I really, really wish this wasn't recorded, because every time I stuff it up, I just want to start again. And that just gets me nowhere. So this is the last one. Hello, beautiful people. It's Quentin from the Hunters of Light. And it's hashtag Wildlife Month on the Hunters of Light. If you haven't already entered your images, you've got 15 days left to win that amazing lens from Canon. I also wanted to approach this from a slightly different angle. I didn't want to just see, stories about rhinos and stories about leopards and blah, 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 blah. I want to try and get something slightly different. So we've already done something, if you've not seen it already, from the guys at Pangolin Photo Safaris. Some amazing, amazing experiences that I had, it's a week ago already. Can't believe it. But yeah, so we've done, something a little bit out of the ordinary there. Today we're talking conservation with Wild Wonderful World. Michelle is going to be taking us through their experiences, driving up from Joburg up to Kenya, etc., giving us a bit of insights about what they did, how they did it, and why they did it. And then we've got another one coming up, which I'll tell you about later, which will also give you a slightly different perspective of the wildlife type theme. So, all right, I really hope I can use this one, because I really don't want to record 17 more takes. All right, cue the intro. All right, everyone. So here we are with Michelle. Michelle is the one half of Michelle and Grant, which is the Wild Wonderful World. They have been doing an epic conservation overlanding journey, 393 days, 19,000 odd kilometers. Within that whole trip, they've seen elephants with a tie around its foot. They've been bogged in Land Rover Defender in the Delta, which incidentally came around about the same time. I don't know which was first, chicken and egg, where I bought my 20-year-old Land Rover Defender. It's quite a life that you guys lead. I'm completely envious, would love to position myself right there. But I suppose everyone kind of sees the warm and fuzzy and the awesomeness of it. I'm pretty sure that there's a flip side to it. But I think it'd be fantastic in Wildlife Month on the Hunters of Light to look at slightly different perspective to the usual wildlife journey, I suppose, where we got pictures of lions, pictures of leopards, etc. I wanted to bring in a bit more of a conservation element. So I'm really excited because I've been like a bit of a fanboy of your guys' Instagram page for so long. It's fantastic to chat to you, and I really want to get into some of the stories and the experiences, because it looked epic.
Okay, so as you so kindly introduced, we're going to be talking about our conservation journey, which was our 393 days on the road, and talk about some of those experiences we had and touch on the conservation lessons that we learned along the way as well. So the primary aim was to learn about conservation, but we wanted to travel off the beaten track and in true Defender style, make a real adventure of it as well. So we were looking for dirt roads, exploring places less traveled, and trying to find frontier conservation projects that were really not known, perhaps as well as others, and try and support them so that we could share on social media what they were doing, and then also just give our support as in wherever we could. This was our chariot, Kfuy, the 300 TDI Defender, which, as you said, Quentin, you went and bought one, well, not because of, but perhaps out of inspiration. So we were really excited to hear that our journey has inspired others. And it was a pretty neat setup. We had some awesome sponsors to help get us fit and ready on the road with the front runner and Ironman gear, and just loved every minute of that wild adventure and camping in crazy cool places and really being remote and sort of from most of everyday life.
Well, just looking at that picture, that for me is the quintessential picture of owning a Land Rover Defender. That
Exactly.
The sun can be from a different angle, doesn't really matter. That is why, in my opinion, you buy an old Land Rover Defender.
They always look the part. You can get other vehicles, and we won't get into the Toyota Land Rover debate, but the companionship that we got on the road from meeting other Land Rover drivers was awesome. You just had instant friends everywhere you went just because of what you're driving. And it just looks amazing in photos. I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just for sort of a knowledge point of view, for those people who don't know where we went and what we did, I thought I'd share a quick map, which shows our route. We had a tracker on board, which uploaded our position every 20 minutes, which was very cool, from Tracks for Africa. So we started and ended in Johannesburg, and our most northern route, place that we stopped was Murchison Falls in Uganda. Some places and countries we stopped over for longer than others. So Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, and Kenya, we spent quite significant amounts of time throughout that year and a bit, and then mixed it up between working and staying with conservation projects and then just exploring like crazy. So I thought in the run through of some of our pictures, I would go through a little bit in order of the countries that we went through, and just highlight some of our wildlife highlights, I suppose, and some of the lessons that we learned along the way from a conservation standpoint.
Fantastic. I mean, it looks like an amazing journey. And I think for people that haven't done it, you look at the map and you go, yeah, we'll drive there and then we'll stay there and we'll drive there, etc. But again, scrolling through your Instagram, I can see some of those roads where, well, we wouldn't really call them roads, would have given you guys headaches. And I think that, possibly will fill people with trepidation as well as excitement, depending on the way that you look at your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think COVID has really driven this need to get out and explore and have an adventure. So many people have been stuck at home and just dreaming of doing all of these different things and getting out back into the wilderness. So yeah, it's a good time for it.
Absolutely. And I think that, we can possibly inspire some people to start booking trips towards the end of the year. They don't necessarily have to buy a 20, 25-year-old Land Rover, but something with four-wheel drive, I would say, is a must. Rooftop tent and away you go. But the whole idea, I suppose, is if you want some adventure, take the opportunities that present themselves and just go for it.
Yeah, I think there's lots of people always that are going to give you the benefits and the negatives of everything. I can tell you straight away that when I told my parents and friends that we were going to go live in our Land Rover, they all thought we were crazy. And, there's plenty of people saying things like, oh, but it's not safe. And should you really be doing that? But, certainly in our experience, safety and security was really never an issue. And I think generally travel is a lot more accessible than what people make it sound like. That would be my takeaway from our trip, is that it's easier than you think it is to just get out.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, the security would be a little bit of a concern, but as you say, it depends on the way that you approach the trip, and if you know what to look out for, and possibly do a bit of research of where not to go. You're also going to be keeping yourself on the right track.
Yeah, and we were pretty savvy with our route as well. I mean, you'll see that we left out Mozambique, and certainly places like Congo, just mostly out of a security point of view. Not saying that Mozambique is not a destination to visit, but certainly that northeastern corner, which is where we may have come south back through from Tanzania, just wasn't a safe point at the time.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you just have to keep up. And the overland community is amazing. Everyone updates each other all the time on social media, and it's a great resource to have when you're traveling.
Fantastic. Well, I've just recently come back from Chobe. Granted, I didn't drive there, It's something that I'd love to do is do a bit of an overland trip into Botswana, etc. So maybe this will be another kick in the pants that I need to to get things going. But very, very excited to see what pictures you've got to show us today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, on that note, let's start in Botswana. So when we packed our car to go traveling, we thought, well, let's take everything we need. It's going to be super remote. We're not going to be able to get anything anywhere. We have to be totally self-reliant. And in actual fact, the first 2 weeks of our trip, the first week or so, we were traveling through the Central Kalahari Game Reserve from south to north. And that was the most remote that we were in our whole year of traveling. And that was the only place that we had to be entirely self-sufficient. This photo was taken in the Valley of Desolation, and we didn't see another vehicle, I think, for 5 or 6 days. It was so remote. And for anybody looking for a real adventure, traveling through the Central Kalahari is one of the few destinations where you can go and really feel that sense of isolation and really being in the middle of nowhere. And being in the middle of nowhere with no light pollution, the stars for one were absolutely superb. And we had such a great start to our adventure there.
And just a question on your photography experience up until then. Had you guys done a lot of photography before that, or is it, a case of, we like photography and we're going to take some pictures to document the trip type of thing?
So we'd both done a little bit of wildlife photography while we were working in the lodges and helping guests with wildlife photography along the way. I have to say, I'm a little bit shy to be sharing any of these photos on your platform, seeing the superb group of photographers and artists that you've had on your channel so far. So we're by no means experts, and I would say very much more on the amateur photography point of view. But we wanted to use our images to share the sense of adventure, but then also as a tool to educate others about not just the destinations that we were traveling to, but the experiences and the conservation issues along the way.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the story behind an image, unless it's a commercial image, the story behind an image just goes such a long way, and it doesn't matter how you record that image. Just to have an image of what you experienced, what it was like. That is all it really needs. You don't have to be tip top professional level to create that story, because the story is as you're going through it now. I'm seeing the pictures, but I'm feeling the goosebumps, because I can just imagine what the grass would feel like, and that sound behind me on the right. Oh yeah, there we go. Love it.
That's your favorite one.
Well, it's the one that fills me with the biggest, trepidation and fear. That's for sure.
I mean, I would say that overlanding isn't really for sissies. You've got to be prepared to get your feet wet, get your hands muddy. I think traveling with a single vehicle as well, you should probably have a pretty good idea of what you're doing. But if you've got 2 vehicles, then things are a lot better. I have to say, we got stuck and bogged down relatively little during our whole year, but mostly because we were on our own and we were very aware of the fact that, if things really did go south, then we would have a problem because we didn't have anyone to pull us out. But we had really good recovery gear. Things like those green treads that you see leaning up against the car, they got us out of every single boggy situation that we found ourselves in, and you just stick them under the tires and off you go. So if anybody's about to head off on an overland mission, those are from Ironman, and we would never travel anywhere without them. They were fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can see here there are a couple of options for you to winch, yourself out of. But if you're in the middle of a pan somewhere, that on your own, it would be a lot more tricky. But I really like the way that you just casually threw in there, yeah, you just put them under the wheels and, drive on out of there.
Yeah, well, you see, Grant's jacking up, so you got to jack up the car, then put them under. So yeah, maybe not quite so casual and quite so fast, but very effective.
Very cool. Love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Botswana was phenomenal. The green, the lush waterways. It's of all of our destinations, I think the Okavango Delta is definitely my favorite. A close second, though, we moved onwards to Zimbabwe, and our first conservation project was at a place called Boomi Hills, and that's in this photograph here, which is along the shores of Lake Kariba. So you've got that glittering water, beautiful sunrises and sunsets, and then game that just sort of litters the vast savannas there. And it was an area that, when Zimbabwe wasn't doing so well, became very run down. And slowly but surely, through a combination of an excellent anti-poaching unit and then some investment from an ecotourism point of view, things are starting to pick up there again a little bit. And we volunteered for 6 weeks with the Boomi Hills anti-poaching unit and spent time with them patrolling and really learning sort of what the challenges were in their wilderness area, and learned things like, the scale of fish poaching on the Kariba Dam, which, to be honest, I really didn't know much about before. And the really what snaring meant. There was issues of elephant poaching in the area. And I think coming from South Africa, where our reserves are fenced, so the security on the outset is very, very good. There was a lot of issues that we weren't really experienced in. We all know a lot about rhino poaching, and in South Africa, I think that's certainly the biggest form of poaching that we see. But you go outside of the borders and it's snaring and poaching of different species as well. So it was a really interesting experience that we had with them.
Yeah, I must say, I wouldn't have thought of fish poaching, but I suppose that's the reality of it. It's not just the big social media headlines and hashtags, save the rhino, etc. There's a lot of other smaller animals that get caught in, I suppose, a little bit more of a subsistence poaching, if there's such a phrase, than the horns that get sent overseas for huge money.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the first lesson we learned, was what's the difference between subsistence poaching and syndicate poaching. Syndicate poaching is your bigger ivory rhino horn type poaching, where those goods are sold on a global scale. And then you've got subsistence poaching, which is fish, and where a lot of the snaring comes in, where local people will go into a game reserve, set wire snares to catch an antelope or two to feed their family. But even in that, we learn over time that there's a very gray area even with subsistence poaching, because that's then getting taken over by, for want of a better word, greedier and greedier people, where they're taking more than just for their family, and now they're selling it in local markets, and it just becomes totally unsustainable. So it wasn't an easy thing to see. And the fish poaching, I mean, there was people coming over from Zambia in little boats in the middle of the night and scooping vast amounts of fish. They would come over in a dugout canoe boat with a chest freezer in the middle of it.
Wow.
Two of them would be canoeing and paddling, and the other would just be scooping water out the middle of the canoe, because, they don't obviously have much money. They're not driving fancy boats, but they come in and they fish all night long with lights, so it tracks the fish up to the surface, and then they go back and they sell all the fish in Zambia. So, again, if it was just on a small scale and a subsistence side of things, and maybe it would be sustainable and okay. But when it's done on a scale where there's hundreds and hundreds of people coming across and they're all taking vast amounts of fish, regardless of size or age, then it's suddenly not sustainable anymore. And it's a big issue.
Absolutely. No, it's like I say, the smaller animals don't get as much of a profile, but it's you take out one set of animals, and that ecosystem could easily fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a hard thing to share with people because, as you say, it's not as glamorous, but as interesting necessarily as some of the bigger species. And I think even this slide is testament to that, where it's I could show you a bucket of fish, but then if I show you this image, it really, for me, it hits home a lot harder because I think people can identify with and connect larger, more characteristic animals. But it is equally as big of an issue.
Yeah.
This photograph was also taken in Boomi Hills, and they still do have a problem with with elephant poaching in the area. And for me, this was my first poached elephant carcass that I had ever seen. We'd unfortunately seen rhinos before in South Africa, but to be on a foot patrol and then suddenly you walk into this where there was vultures everywhere and they'd taken the tusks. The team here were looking for the bullet because then they could run diagnostics on it. But
right.
It was a really, really hard thing to see.
No, absolutely. I also think, when you first showed the slide and mentioned like the bucket of fish, I think that, for something like fish, in your mind, it's something that you eat, whereas this you don't. So it's almost like, well, yeah, that's fine, but this isn't. So I can see how that side of things would be quite difficult.
Yeah, it is. And it's difficult from a social media point of view because they're equally as important conservation challenges. But if you're trying to create emotion and get people to support various projects, then you need to look at what people really care about. And David Attenborough hit the nail on the head, and he said, "No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced." And I think if you think about a general safari, even a photographic safari, on the most part, people are taking photographs of these characteristic animals such as elephants and the big cats. So then for somebody to see an image like this, it's a heartbreaking one. You don't get quite so many people going and taking pictures or viewing necessarily for fish. So yeah, it comes down to emotions, I think, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can understand how, having one of these as the hero of your campaign is going to get you more traction than a bucket of fish. That I can understand completely.
Yeah. But it's a lesson that we've slowly learned over time. But we actually used it as a positive lesson in the sense that there's a lot of, I don't know how to say it. I mean, I think globally, there's a lot of quite graphic and really difficult images that are shared around on social media a lot. And the aim is to ignite this emotion and kickstart people into supporting various projects. And it's not really something that at Wild Wonderful World that we want to be doing. Our approach is more to get people over to Africa to travel with us, to see things for themselves on the ground, the good and the bad. And rather sort of share it like that than through difficult images.
Absolutely.
Certainly, if we highlighting these different conservation issues during this talk, it is something that, it's something that we saw, and it certainly evoked a lot of emotion in us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. I'm glad we can, try and highlight at least some of these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't like ending on a horrible image. So this is also Boomi Hills, and the efforts that anti-poaching unit have put in has seen not only the elephant population improve. So they've been coming, well, I think when there was a huge amount of elephant poaching and snaring in the area, a lot of animals left the conservancy, and through their protection have started to return. And you can sit and view these animals from an ecotourism perspective now, and it's amazing to see it come 360. And it's almost like the animals know that they're in a safer environment. And yeah, it was just really great to see. So on from Zimbabwe, we moved into Zambia. We had a rather terrifying experience where we put the Land Rover on a very, very dodgy boat to cross Lake Kariba. 2 days, and we watched it on the tracker as it crossed bit by bit. So that was quite an experience. And then we spent quite a lot of time in Zambia, first connecting with a elephant rehabilitation program. And they were taking orphaned elephants, often who had lost their parents or their mothers from poaching, rehabilitating them and releasing them back into the wild. So that was very special to see because, it's one of these positive conservation projects where, again, talking about it going full circle, you've got a positive impact at the end of the day where you're giving these animals a second chance of life. So that was really amazing to see. And it ended up leading us to the Kfuy National Park, which I don't know if you've ever been there before, but it is truly wild. We spent some time in the northwestern corner in an area called the Busanga GMA, which is a game management area on the edge of the Kfuy National Park. And we connected with an aerial anti-poaching unit there. And they were trying to protect around 5,000 square kilometers, which is a massive, massive space.
Huge.
And I don't know if you can see in the pictures, but it is very, very swampy. So they had a foot patrol unit that went out, and then they had the aerial unit as well. And their challenges there were, again, quite similar to Boomi Hills, very much a snaring issue, poaching, general poaching, but also tree felling. To clear space for farming, but bizarrely also for the collection of caterpillars. There were at certain times of the year there are lots of caterpillars in the tops of trees, and so people were cutting down the trees so that they could more quickly harvest the caterpillars. Sure. They got to take them to the market first. They got a higher price than later in the season. But it was so short-sighted because obviously then those trees were cut down and there's not going to be any caterpillars next year.
That's right.
So, yeah, it was just kind of crazy things that we were learning all along the way. But yeah, we learned a lot more about snaring. You can see there's different types of wire snares in this image. And what they would do is use the helicopter. Well, they had a small fixed wing plane to patrol the area and look for small plumes of smoke coming up into the sky. And then that would be an indication of a poacher's camp, because the poachers would catch animals through snares and then smoke them and dry them on the fire. So then the helicopter would take a group of anti-poaching, a couple of soldiers from the anti-poaching unit, and then run in and bust those camps. And some of the stuff that was there, this is just a quick video. I mean, these guys this was not just subsistence poaching. This was for the market. I won't stay too long on that. It's quite graphic. But I mean, they were taking all sorts of animals, porcupines, aardvark, civet, whatever they could catch in their snares, they were taking, drying it, and then, they would bicycle it out of there and take it to Lusaka and sell it in the market for people to eat. It was terrifying.
Now, is that for, I suppose, general consumption? There's no, just, so you, over here we'd maybe have some beef or some lamb or something like that. They would have bushmeat.
That's correct. And I think there's quite a big market for bushmeat. I think it comes back to traditional beliefs of if you eat a wild animal, it makes you stronger than if you eat a cow, kind of thing.
Right. You then possess their spirit.
Really, yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of education programs out there because obviously the way that they dry the meat and transport the meat, there's nothing regulated about it, and people get very, very sick from eating it. So slowly with various education programs, I think it's hoped that people would eat it less and less. But unfortunately for now, it's still a massive reality. That was a massive challenge for this Busanga region because they wanted to run a tourism photographic camp from the reserve there. And in this photograph, you can see the Asitutunga, which was a lifer for me and Grant. We'd never seen one before.
Right.
So that was this photograph, a little bit blurry, but taken from the helicopter, just showing that there is game in the area, but because they're being poached so much, on a vehicle or on foot, you never get remotely close to them before they run away. You need to really secure an area with a solid anti-poaching unit and make those animals feel safe before you can set up any kind of ecotourism operation, and especially a photographic outfit. But when things do get better and you can see animals like this, it is incredible what can be done. Okay, so onwards again. We did wind our way up through Malawi, and then we got into East Africa, which was places that Grant and I had always dreamed of going. I mean, you've got those umbrella thorn trees and just these vast vistas of expanses of land. So we were super excited to get up there. And I've put this photograph in because it really captures just the feeling of being in the middle of nowhere, being very wild. And then you've got these moody skies and golden light. We really loved every minute of being up there.
Absolutely. I mean, it is really just an image that exemplifies it. The only thing for me that's missing is the sandy Jeep track, running into the yeah. distance. You know what I mean? But that's perfect. Just looking at it's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah. So I think at this time we would have also wished there would have been a sandy dirt track. So we were doing a camera trap survey, and we had to place camera traps every 2 kilometers. And so we were moving off road to all these different trees to put camera traps up. It was for a wildlife survey and also for anti-poaching.
Okay.
But we properly explored these areas. It was unbelievable. And then one of my favorite photographs, just a real classic Serengeti scene of the sun setting in the distance and pride of lions and this vast open vistas, and then there's little black blobs of wildebeest in the distance as well. Really, really superb memories. I think Grant took this photo. He was sitting on the floor next to the vehicle, which was just such a cool experience.
That's wonderful.
I don't know if you've spent much time up in East Africa, but when we moved across into Kenya, we learned about human-wildlife conflict, which again, in South Africa, with fences separating people and animals, it wasn't really something that we were aware of so much. But moving into East Africa, there are no fences that separate the people and the animals. And this area was exactly the same area where all of the predators and all of the other wildlife live, and is shared with the Maasai and their massive herds of cows. And it was unbelievable to be on game drives and looking for lions and leopards, and then the next minute it's just this huge herd of cows and a couple of ladies carrying some sticks walking through the bush. Was
it is a bit strange, eh?
Yeah. But so really 2 takeaways from this. The first is it's incredible that people can live in harmony with wildlife. And this was a really good example of how they could, where they had well-constructed bomas for their wildlife, and they were paid supplement income from local lodges to be able to run ecotourism on the same property that they would graze their cows. And I think it's places like that. These are on the conservancies in and around the Mara Triangle, that, I think it's a really good sustainable model going forward where human and wildlife can live together side by side. I guess the trouble comes in where it stops working. And this was a photograph taken in Tanzania, actually, where a lion had been attacking local livestock, and the local Maasai, some of the local villagers had gone and, trying to chase away the lion with arrows and sticks and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's really hard to see because you immediately jump on side with the wild animal and think, how on earth could they kill an animal because it's not fair and they're endangered. But, if you think about those people who really have nothing and their 1 or 2 goats or cows is what sustains their whole family, you can't really blame them where the system then fails and the wild animals start eating the livestock.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then let's say you start off the year with, 10 goats, and halfway through the year you've now got 4 because 6 of them have been eaten. I can definitely see it from that side of things.
Yeah, and there's huge anger and fear as well, because if you look at this group of people, this is on the edge of the Serengeti-Grumeti Game Reserve. These people will not be going on safari into the game reserves. That's unfortunately a lot of people are priced out of going into these wilderness areas. And so they don't have that positive experience of wildlife. And if you're only experiencing the negative of something, experiencing elephants trashing your crops or lions killing your goats, there's only negative feelings against these animals. And again, going back to David Attenborough, why would you want to protect something that you don't care about? And again, I think it comes down to education and a very collaborative effort of helping the local community better protect their livestock, and then giving them the opportunity to get out into game reserves to experience the benefits and the positives of wildlife, and then running a education program alongside it about why these animals are important and why we need them to continue to be in our environment. So also very sad but interesting experience to have had to have seen that.
Absolutely.
And just another classic Serengeti of the giraffes in the distance in the vista. So on
there we go. Goosebumps.
There we go. Any guesses?
No, but I see a Land Rover. I see a lot of umbrella trees. I see dirt and sand, and I'm just going, that's nice.
That's it. So this was one of our absolute favorite places to travel to. This is in Semburu National Park, just north of Mount Kenya. And we were working at a nearby lodge at the time, and we had a couple of days off. So we went into Semburu to do some camping and just had epic experiences. I mean, it was vast, as you can see, making the little look so tiny. And the animals that we saw were mind-blowing. This was really where our wildlife highlights really started to hit, was sort of Tanzania, Kenya northwards. So Grevy's zebra, the vulturine guinea fowl were both massive birders. So we were super, super stoked to see the vulturine. The gerenuk, which I had never even heard of. We got to Kenya. Looks a little bit like an impala, but with a super long neck and funny little face. They feed up on their back legs.
Sure.
So that was a cool thing to see. And this was a Gunther's dik-dik. We called her Dee Dee. She was a little dik-dik that lived around our tent when we were staying up in Kenya. And again, the benefits of traveling to areas that you've never been to before, obviously the different species that you see, and fascinating. We were so excited to see this little one.
So cute.
So cute. That's that nose. Cool. So then you would have thought that the adventure had already started, but I feel like until we got to Uganda, actually the adventure hadn't started. Uganda was the real start of our adventure, with crazy roads and just unbelievable wilderness areas as well. This photo was taken when we were driving between Murchison Falls National Park and Bwindi Impenetrable, and we decided obviously to take the road less taken.
The scenic route.
The scenic route, and came across this scene on the left where a banana truck had got bogged down on the left in the middle, and then 2 vehicles had tried to overtake on both sides and both got stuck, one including a UN vehicle. So luckily with Kuhanya, we came to the rescue and we pulled out the UN and the mini left, and then eventually managed to scrape past. Unfortunately, Kuhanya did not come off unscathed.
Okay.
We fell against, it looks really flat in that photo, but it wasn't. It was very slippery, and we slid into the banana truck.
Oh no.
And our spade strapped onto the side of the roof actually saved us from too much damage, but we ended up scraping along the banana truck to get out. And then got out the other side, and the driver of the banana truck said, "Can we now please pull him out?" Which was never, ever going to happen. So we just had to say, "Thank you, sorry, you're going to have to wait for something a lot heavier."
Something a little bit bigger, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a very cool adventure. And we just loved, this is really dirt red roads, and you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. I love that feeling. And again, just this onward collection of new species and lifers that we hadn't seen before. This is a photograph of a red-tailed monkey that we saw at Ginger, which is where the source of the Nile is, where the Nile River starts out of Lake Victoria, I think it is. Cute little thing.
Very cute.
Yeah, and then into the land of chimps and gorillas. Again, we'd managed to do a bit of work in Kenya, so had replenished our funding, or at least some of it, so that as we headed back south, we could do some of the wildlife experiences that we had always wanted to do, but previously didn't have the bucks to do. So we went to trek chimps and gorillas as well. And highlight of all, of course, with the birds was the shoebill. I don't know if you've ever seen a shoebill, but they are just massive, the size of a man, and so prehistoric looking. I know it's not going to win photo of the year contests, but the emotion behind seeing this bird after searching, I think we were on the boat for the whole day in what's meant to be one of the best places to see it, on Lake Albert in Murchison Falls. We were so stoked when we eventually found it.
Well, I tell you what, I've only recently started birding, and my knowledge is definitely that of a newbie. But what's been drummed into me is get a record shot. You've got to at least have a shot of it, then from there you can start sweating the details. I've never seen one of these, and just I suppose just to be able to find one and shoot it, which, oh man, it's what an experience.
Yeah, it really was. And a photography highlight as well for us, because as you say, you've got to get the record of seeing it. And, it's sometimes difficult, but we were so excited when we put this picture on the computer and it had come out relatively okay. A really nice memory to be able to have.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this was in Bwindi Impenetrable Forest, where we trekked for gorillas. And again, I don't know for anybody listening who have been there or who haven't been there before. For us, especially coming out of South Africa, it was paradise. There was so much to see. I was walking behind Grant and he fell head over heels at least 3 times because he was so busy looking up, because there's so much to see above you. Yeah. I think as guides in South Africa, a lot of what we're looking for is on the ground or kind of just above the ground, sort of tree level. You're looking for a leopard tree or something. When you're tracking, you're looking at the ground. But when you're walking in a forest like Bwindi, it's almost 360. You've got the rivers, you've got all of the creatures living in the low sort of scrubbers where you're walking, and then you've got this massive canopy of trees rising above you with birds that you've never even heard of just flying everywhere. And yeah, it was actually quite overwhelming for us to walk through there, and was equally as much of a highlight as seeing the gorillas itself.
I can imagine that it'd be quite overwhelming because a lot of the birds that fly over, and even the little animals that are all over the place, you might not even know what they are. So like for me, pretty much everything is an LBJ. until I've got a slightly better idea of what it is. So, but if you're there, it's a different country, different environment, different ecosystem. Everything is just bird, until you've actually
It's like crazy
identified
cool
it.
birds, like massive ones,
Yeah,
full of, and I mean, real spectacle of birds. It was so cool, and we came away with really sore necks because we're just walking up like. It was actually quite tough because, obviously the focus of a gorilla trek is to trek the gorillas, and can be a little bit of a route march. So for anybody going, if you are interested in more than just the gorillas, either book a nature walk alongside it to do before or after, or book 2 gorilla treks, because they don't stop, unfortunately, at least not in our experience. We had so many questions of, whether it be butterflies or birds or community, we really wanted to kind of spend time looking at, and just wasn't the opportunity, because it wasn't the focus. So yeah, if I could give any advice, it would be to do a nature walk alongside a gorilla trek for sure.
Okay, that's good advice.
And then our money shot of the gorilla when we did eventually find them, which was so humbling to be in the presence of such a massive ape. Just a very, very special moment for us.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. I could look at this photo all day.
Yeah.
There's such interesting animals. Like they're so human, the way they use their hands, interacting with one another, and very, very relaxed around people. It's a great opportunity to just watch them doing what they would do naturally, without, their behavior being changed and affected by you being there. And I think that's what's so special about seeing the gorillas in an area where they're relatively habituated, is just because you can experience that natural behavior.
Absolutely. This looks like an old guy sitting on the stoep looking out into the distance. Just there's definitely a sort of a wealth of knowledge and experience, looking into those eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're very special animals. I wanted to put this photo in because I took this photograph as we were driving into Windy, and that line of forest is the border of the national park. So that is Windy Impenetrable Forest on the right, and on the left has been cleared for farmland and grazing. And for me, I didn't really realize what habitat loss was until we saw this, because those gorillas are living in theory now in isolation. They can't move between wilderness areas now because they're entirely surrounded by farmland, and there's no fences. So it's not like they're fenced in, but their habitat makes them be fenced in now, because they can't go beyond their borders of the forest. And it was really hard and sad to see that there has been so much natural forest be chopped down and lost to farming and grazing. I never realized the extent of it before.
Absolutely,
not something easy to see.
And I think that's also one of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted to have a slightly different perspective. You can have a whole series of photographs of the trek into the forest, the experience that you have with the apes, etc. But there's another part of it that needs to be highlighted, and that is, as you say, the habitat loss that comes with wanting to grow crops and feed families, etc. And I think there's always going to be that battle between preserving the natural habitats and feeding the population, and that conflict. I think I'm not sure how one can get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an ever increasing problem as population sizes continue to grow. But there's a project NGO that we connected with in and around Windy called Gorilla.org, and they are working to highlight and fix that problem. This issue between gorillas and the community. And they work with people who used to go into the forest to set snares and poach for subsistence purposes, and also to collect food and different plants out of the forest to feed their families. And they have reformed them. So it's called the Reformed Poachers Group. A lot of the men in this photograph used to be poachers in the forest, and they were taken out. They were trained as farmers. They were given land and all of the tools that they need to farm, and continued to work with the organization Gorilla Org to help them grow their own food, have a living, earn money off of the crops that they can sell, to keep them out of the forest, but also to farm sustainably so that they can do it on a smaller patch of land and have better crop yield. And for me, having seen the gorillas, having seen the the extent of encroachment of farms, and then learning about Gorilla Org and these kind of projects, it's really amazing to see and know that there's people out there who are really working to address these habitat loss issues by working with communities to uplift them, but that also at the same time works to protect wildlife. And I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's fantastic to see that, those types of initiatives, because, as I said, that conflict, I'm not sure how it would go away, but this would certainly go a long way towards mitigating that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, people go into the forest because they need food and they need money. And if you can give them food and money without going into the forest, and you can make them proud of the life that they've got, I mean, it's really a win-win situation.
Yeah.
But is interested in this project. They're called Gorilla Org. They really do amazing work. So please do reach out to them if you want to learn more about their projects. And then I just wanted to share a final few slides more on kind of what we're doing since we've got back from our expedition. We have formalized our trust, and we are running a number of different projects simultaneously. So the first is our Rapid Response Fund, where we're helping provide funding for emergency work. For example, if an animal's snared, or if there's a human-wildlife conflict and they need to send a helicopter or a vet or whatever it may be to help mitigate that, then we help with funding for that. And then we support frontier projects and research projects. So this is photographs of a wild dog being collared in conjunction with Endangered Wildlife Trust. And this helps the researchers monitor where the dogs are going, or they monitor the alpha of each pack. And if it moves into a dangerous area or out of a protected area, then they get a notification and they can help reduce any conflict issues that may arise, and then also just learn more about the species. And just this photo on the left-hand side, I just think it's so cool. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed before in the tracks of a wild dog, but their two middle toes are actually fused. And I always love getting up close and, seeing the animals, because you can see all the cool details like that.
Yeah, that's lovely. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So next time you see a wild dog track, have a look, and you can actually see the fused toes sometimes if you look, depending on the substrate. So
cool.
Really awesome supporting projects like this, because I think the data that they get from it and the information that they learn really helps better protect these animals going forward. Same for collaring of elephants, learning about the elephant corridors, how they move through areas and which time of the year, and then being able to focus resources and protect the areas that they use as corridors, especially in kind of lesser protected areas like Mozambique, for example. And Quentin, you mentioned the elephant with the tire on its foot. Shame, this is that Ellie. Again, just providing rapid response support for instances like this, and however we can help support really goes a long way. And then our third is flying for conservation and supporting helicopter hours and eyes in the sky to help with everything from anti-poaching, human-wildlife conflict, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that wraps me up to my final slide. I just wanted to end off with some of our favorite wildlife images that we took in a varying locations through the year, and then also when we were guiding, and just to kind of remind us what it's all about, what it is that we working to protect, and just the exquisite animals that we get to see on safari every day. It's amazing.
Oh, it is fantastic. The cats are amazing. I think there's always going to be that love affair with these cute little kitty cats that prowl around. So Michelle, that was fantastic. As I said during your chat, the cool thing about photography is that there's so many amazing stories that are behind it. You don't have to be have an amazing camera. You don't even have to be the world's top photographer. There's that old adage of the best camera is the camera that you have with you. And beautiful images that tell amazing stories can be taken with cell phones, etc. And for me, the beauty of the stories that I'm certainly trying to put on the Hunters of Light is that there are real amazing stories behind those images. And I loved hearing about your trip in the Landy, your conservation stories and the things that you see. And it's really amazing and inspiring. And I think that if there was a flag that I was holding, that's we've got to do that one day, bucket list. It would be to get into an off-road vehicle of any description and just go take my cameras and take beautiful pictures, look at the scenery, feel the grass in my fingers. It's something that it sounds all warm and fuzzy, but it's almost like a calling. I want to go and do that, and I think for you guys to live that is absolutely amazing.
Thank you. No, we really had incredible experiences, and I couldn't recommend it more to people, is to get out there and explore, and always take a camera, because there's going to be plenty that you're going to want to capture and keep as memories.
Absolutely. And speaking of cameras, for this month, #Wildlife Month, I don't know if you can see that. It's probably not going to focus on it. This is the prize for this month's photography competition. So if you guys, you should enter. I think I think we should enter. Yeah, absolutely. But for the rest of you, we've still got I think 15 days left in this month's wildlife competition. Upload your images, follow all the new guidelines that have come into force this month, and let's get some amazing photos to have the winner win this amazing lens. And if this is the first time that you're watching the Hunters of Light, thank you very much. Welcome. If you have watched before and you've subscribed, thank you so much. Subscribing, liking, hitting the notification bell, that all goes to helping the channel and letting us educate, motivate, and inspire more people about photography. So thanks very much for that. And Michelle, it's a pity that Grant couldn't be with you, but it's fantastic to hear your story. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you so much for having us on your channel.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm going to keep following your Instagram and your blog, because I know there's going to be amazing stories. So just when you're out there, just think there's someone stalking you. Well, at least one person. There's probably more, but just don't be weirded out. Just go with it.
We appreciate you following.
Cool. Thanks very much. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Quentin.
Thanks.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.